The mid-19th century. A time of fancy hats, suspicious mustaches, and military tactics designed by people who probably shouldn't have been trusted with scissors, let alone armies. Today we're talking about one of the most gloriously dumb moments in military history. The charge of the Light Brigade, YOLO Edition. Yes, it's time for that spectacular British cavalry maneuver that historians have politely referred to as a miscommunication, but everyone else just calls a flaming train wreck on horseback. Let's set the scene. It's 1854. Europe is mid-simmer in the Crimean War, which sounds like a Netflix thriller, but is really just Russia versus an awkward tag team of Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire. Like a Eurovision group project gone horribly wrong. Why were they fighting? Mostly vibes, and also access to religious sites, Black Sea ports, and because colonial powers were bored and deeply petty. The battle in question, the Battle of Balaclava. No, not the dessert. That's baklava. Balaclava is a cold, miserable stretch of land in Crimea, soon to be home to one of the dumbest battlefield moments ever recorded. Now enter the stars of our disaster piece, the Light Brigade, around 670 British cavalrymen, armed with sabers, riding horses, wearing pants so tight you could hear them think. Light cavalry were fast, mobile, and great at harassing retreating enemies. What they were not great at, charging headfirst into a valley flanked by Russian artillery, dug-in infantry, and cannon batteries screaming, "Do it, we dare you." But before we talk about the charge, we need to meet our three key blunderers. Lord Raglan, Commander-in-Chief of the British forces, one-armed veteran of Waterloo, genuinely brave, utterly confused by how telescopes and communication worked. Lord Lucan, cavalry commander, terrible listener, bad at taking orders, even worse at giving them. Had the personality of a wet cravat. And Lord Cardigan, yes, like the sweater. In fact, he is the reason we call cardigans cardigans. He was rich, angry, and dumb as a bag of doorknobs. Also Lucan's brother-in-law. They hated each other so much that they made the Hatfields and McCoys look emotionally well-adjusted. Now imagine these three men, none of whom particularly liked each other, playing a game of telephone with deadly weapons. That's how we got the charge. So what was supposed to happen? Lord Raglan, up on a hill with a good view of the battlefield, saw Russian troops trying to haul away some captured British artillery. Not cool. He scribbles a note that basically says, "The enemy is trying to move the guns. Stop them." Love Raglan. And then he sends it with Captain Nolan, a cavalry officer who was basically the 1850s version of someone who corrects your grammar during a sword fight. Nolan delivers the message to Lucan, who's down in the valley and can't see what Raglan saw. There are, in fact, several sets of guns on the battlefield. Nolan points vaguely down the valley and says, "There are the enemy's guns." Lucan looks, sees a Russian artillery line at the other end of the valley with cannons pointed right at them, and goes, "Ah, yes. Obviously those must be the ones. Let's send the Light Brigade there." And somehow nobody said, "Wait, are you sure?" Nope. Just vibes. So Lucan tells Cardigan, "Hey, take your Light Brigade and charge directly into those cannons." To which Cardigan basically says, "Jolly good. Tally-ho. For Queen and country." And then rides off like he's starring in his own war-themed cologne commercial. Altisata eptseci de mai. All courage, zero context. They start riding down the valley of death, as Tennyson famously called it, because nothing screams inspiration like epic poetry about catastrophic failures. Now picture this. You're a Russian gunner. You've got your nice comfy position on a hill. You're sipping whatever 19th century Russians sipped. Kvass? Vodka? Liquid nihilism. Suddenly, a perfectly formed line of British cavalry starts trotting towards you. Not skirmishing, not flanking, just straight up galloping, like it's the equestrian Olympics. And you're like, are they serious? They were. And the Russians were like, well, okay then. The valley echoed with cannon fire. Men and horses were blown apart, sabers clattered to the ground. Still, the Light Brigade kept going, because if you're going to be wrong, be confidently wrong. A few actually reached the Russian guns. They slashed at gunners, took a few out, and then realized, oh no. They were surrounded. No reinforcements, no support. The heavy brigade, who were supposed to help, had stayed put, because even they were like, bro, this looks like a trap. Miraculously, some of the Light Brigade actually made it back. Out of the 670 who charged, roughly 110 were killed, over 160 wounded, and 375 horses didn't make it home. Some men were captured, some were never found. The whole thing took maybe 20 minutes, a short film of pure, unfiltered disaster. And back at headquarters, Lucan and Cardigan immediately started blaming each other like two toddlers who just broke Mum's vase. Raglan, of course, insisted his order had been clear. Captain Nolan, the one guy who might have explained things better. Yeah, he died almost instantly in the first volley, hit by shrapnel, probably mid-eye roll. Now, here's the kicker. Back home in Britain, people thought it was awesome, seriously. The press spun it into a tale of British valor. The Times praised the bravery. Alfred, Lord Tennyson, dropped a banger of a poem. School children recited it. Mothers wept, Parliament clapped. Probably. It was military disaster wrapped in patriotic glitter. They even made souvenirs. Cardigan became a celebrity, even though his most impressive battlefield feat was not dying like everyone else. So what did we learn? Communication is important. Clarity saves lives. And maybe, just maybe, don't take orders from a guy named after knitwear. The charge of the Light Brigade was a classic example of overconfidence, bad intel, fragile egos, and a complete lack of backup plans. And yet, it's remembered not just as a blunder, but as a glorious one. Because sometimes history doesn't love winners, it loves the drama. So next time you make a questionable decision and someone asks you, "What were you thinking?" just smile and say, YOLO, like the Light Brigade. Thanks for watching War and Other Poor Decisions. Hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment about your favorite historical facepalm, or tell us what other reckless disasters we should cover next. Until then, don't charge into anything unless you're sure it's not a line of cannons. Seriously.